Good evening. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources that we hope will help improve your life. I'm Stu Reed. I'm here with some very special guests. We have Meghan McNamara, who is the co-founder and executive director of the Octavia Project. Meghan has over 15 years' experience in nonprofit leadership and education, including director of programs at Girls Right Now, a nationally recognized writing and mentoring program for New York City high school girls. Also joining us is Ananya Garg, program manager at the Octavia Project. Ananya is an educator, writer, visual artist, and oral historian with over 5 years of experience working at the intersection of education, writing, and arts in many different spheres. Welcome you both. And Meghan, welcome back. You've been here before.
Yes, thanks so much for having
Yeah.
me back, Sue. It's great to be here.
Okay.
You
Well,
so much.
fabulous. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the Octavia Project, which is a very fascinating and special project. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you are. Meghan, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks. So yeah, as you mentioned in my bio, I have a background in educational nonprofits. So I came to the city shortly after I graduated college, and I've always been interested in education, but sort of working in non-traditional education spaces. So kind of outside of the typical, Monday through Friday classroom. So maybe after school programs, things like that. So I found Girls Right Now, which is an amazing organization, a mentoring and creative writing organization. I worked there for 7 years, directing programs there, and I really loved it. But I wanted to explore a different avenue of education, maybe like a different perspective or different position. So I decided I wanted to do some teaching myself. But again, sort of being interested in these non-traditional education spaces, I talked to some friends who worked in education around the city, and I got introduced to adult education. So students coming back to school to get their high school diplomas or preparing for the GED test, as it's kind of commonly known. And so I started teaching there. I really loved it. I've taught really all different subjects. I was teaching reading and writing. Then I started developing and teaching a science class. And then eventually I started teaching math to adults. And while I was in that position, the idea for the Octavia Project was born. I was talking with a friend of mine who's a novelist and a playwright, Hannah Porter, and she was leading some writing workshops for young women that were sci-fi and fantasy based. And so she came to me and said, I really want to make this a thing. And at that time, I was teaching math and science, and I was also teaching robotics and video game design to middle schoolers in Brooklyn after school, and also going into fifth grade math classrooms. And I said, okay, what if we kind of meld those two things together and use science fiction as a way to teach science and tech through art and writing? So connecting creative writing and also art with computer programming and the natural sciences and engineering and things like that. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today. And I'm doing the Octavia Project, and I also still teach math to adults. So doing a little bit of both.
That's a fascinating skill base that you have, Meghan, bringing all that stuff together. That's incredible. Ananya, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I feel like I can relate to a lot of what Megan was sharing. Like you shared already too. I'm an artist, I'm a writer. I really enjoy doing a lot of different types of things. And I've been working in education for my entire career, whether that's been within schools, outside of schools, and after school programming and community education. But I think that my story actually begins when I was a young person, experiencing education for myself. And it was really in those programs outside of school where I was able to be more of my full self. So I volunteered at the Seattle Art Museum as a kid. I'm from Seattle. And it was there that I got to really have my interest in art be nourished and meet other people interested in art too. I didn't really have friends who were interested in art in school, and that was really lonely. But I also had a chance to explore my identity, explore the way that I was able to present myself in a space. Like I definitely experimented with my gender presentation in that space in a way that I couldn't in high school. And so that has really cemented my desire to work in non-traditional education spaces to create those kind of alternative spaces where young people can experiment with who they are and learn new things that they wouldn't necessarily learn when they're beholden to a specific curriculum within schools. And I think teachers often in schools also struggle with having to meet the needs of curriculums, of principals. So I see our work in collaboration with what schools are doing.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, clearly you both think and operate so much out of the box. That's so refreshing. And I got to start the conversation because I'm a big fan of Octavia Butler, the science fiction writer. And I don't know if our audience is familiar with her at all, but they should be. And I think she was the inspiration, Meghan, in putting the Octavia Project together. I just want to briefly mention that Octavia Butler was a Black African-American woman, science fiction writer. She passed away about a dozen years or so ago, I think 2006. But she prolific, many books. And the book that I first picked up was Wild Seed, and talked about Doro, who was a 4,000-year-old shapeshifter who could jump from body to body. And I mean, an incredible, fascinating story told from the perspective of a Black woman, Black man, because Dora would change sex as well. I mean, just an incredible, fascinating story. And all of Octavia Butler's work was like that in terms of just stretching the imagination and the possibilities, but also tying in historical realities and historical facts as well. So she was an incredible writer. So please, listeners out there, check out Octavia Butler. And maybe, Meghan, you can just give us a little bit of thumbnail about how she or her work inspired you to start the Octavia Project.
Sure. Yeah. And I echo your suggestions too for any listeners who haven't read her work yet to go ahead and do it. And also for the first time, it's been many years in the making, but for the first time, one of Octavia Butler's novels was turned into a TV show. So her novel Kindred, which is about a woman living in kind of contemporary times who is taken back in time to the era when slavery was legal in this country. And she is sort of connected to some people on a plantation in Maryland. And that was turned into a series on Hulu that came out in, I think, December. So, and more of her novels are in the works for TV. So I'm excited that she's finally getting the acclaim and attention she deserves. The first Octavia Butler book I read was Dawn, which is the first book in the Xenogenesis trilogy, or sometimes called the Lilith's Brood trilogy. And it's set in the future where there's been an atomic war on Earth that has sort of destroyed Earth. And Lilith, the main character, wakes up in captivity of an alien race. And so Lilith is kind of dealing with having been selected and chosen as a person from Earth, while most of the rest of people on Earth did not survive. And the aliens sort of charge her with repopulating the Earth. And I was blown away when I read that book. I've been reading sci-fi and fantasy pretty much my entire life. But this book was different than most other works that I've ever read. I'd read some Ursula Le Guin, and I feel like her work is also very prescient and multidimensional. But Octavia Butler's work just really blew me away. The kind of questions that she was dealing with around humanity, what does it mean to be human? What is family? What is community? These questions around, is it inherent to human nature for us to be hierarchical and competitive? Is there a way for us to live in community with one another without having to have some kind of hierarchy or leadership structure? I think her work just really shows how speculative fiction can be a tool to examine our current realities and to also think beyond our current realities and to think to other possibilities. So the Octavia Project uses speculative fiction in a similar way. We use it to explore the world around us, to ask really critical questions about what kind of choices were made to lead us to where we are today. And then we imagine alternate futures. So we think, what if things were different? What if different decisions were made, right? What if we weren't living under a system of capitalism, right? What if we weren't living under a system of over-policing? What would that look like? What are alternate ways of living, alternate forms of community safety? And so the connection sort of seemed natural. Although the name Octavia Project kind of came a little bit later. It was recommended by an advisory board member, because I'm not good with titles or subjects or anything like that. So that was an idea that came from someone else, and I appreciate that contribution. But also, Octavia Butler said, she has this quote where she says, "My first interest in science fiction came with an interest in astronomy." So she was already making these connections between hard sciences and science fiction. So that also is like very much integral to the Octavia Project. So yeah, she inspires us in a lot of different ways. Also, her courage to be a Black woman science fiction writer when everyone told her that that was not possible and that that wasn't a way to make a living. Her courage in pursuing her passion and her dreams also, I think, really inspires all of us at the Octavia Project.
Wow. Ananya, do you have any connection to Octavia Butler? Did you read her stuff? Or familiar with her work? Tell us about it.
Yes, Octavia Butler is a deep source of inspiration for me. I think for me, her Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents books, which are about a young Black girl living in kind of a future America and her journey through escaping violence, building community, developing her own religion. And I think what I really love about those books is the way that this young person has such a clear vision for what the future is and what she wants the future to look like. And everybody around her is telling her that that's not possible and that it doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't stop her. She doesn't waver from her truth and from what she believes the future will be. And I think that that is really a great way to think about the work that we're doing too. I think that young people have such a clear idea of what justice looks like to them, of what the future can look like. And there's a lot of adults in this world who will either intentionally or unintentionally, tell them that it's not possible. And I think what we're trying to do is tell them that it is possible and create a space during this kind of magical time of the summer to let those ideas flourish. And to go back to Octavia Butler, she has this notebook that I actually have with me in which she writes intentions and writes what she wants for herself. And I think what's really cool is that a lot of the things that she wrote on her notebook, like I shall be a best-selling writer, and like she's very specific about her intentions for her work, that a lot of them have happened or in the process of happening. So I feel like Octavia Butler also had this vision for the future, and regardless of what other people were saying, she made it happen. That's kind of my connection to her work.
Wow. Well, I'm overwhelmed by you guys and the way that you are embracing all these new and possible realities. That's so refreshing and so much needed on planet Earth today. So I applaud you for your vision and your thinking and your work, and I guess I'd now like to hear a little bit about how you're actually kind of making this stuff happen. Tell us a little bit about the Octavia Project, your implementation. What are you guys doing?
Sure, yeah. Do you want to start, Ananya? Maybe talk a little
Sure,
bit about
sure.
systems.
I can share a little bit. So, our summer programs are really the intersection of science, art making, and writing. So every day looks a little different. Some days we might be doing urban planning and thinking about how cities are set up and designed and how we might want cities to be set up and designed and making our own maps. Another day we might be doing a science experiment or learning about plant biology. Before I began in this role, I taught a workshop for our camp. And as I was coming up with my lesson, I was really excited about being able to bridge these different parts of myself. So I'm a writer, I'm a poet, I'm a storyteller, but I also have a background in science. I actually studied astronomy for a little bit, and I don't always get to bring that into my education work. And I'm also a visual artist. So for my workshop, what I came up with, I called it the Wayfinding poem. And it began with talking about astronomy, talking about outer space. So I showed the students a planetarium software that I was trained in undergrad, and we looked at different celestial objects. And I asked people about what their favorite celestial objects were. So we looked at Jupiter, we looked at the sun, we looked at different planets' moons. And from there, I shared how human beings have been looking to the stars and the planets for lifetimes and centuries as a way to find their way, whether that's enslaved people traveling north, whether that's people using the stars to navigate when they're traveling by sea. And from there, we kind of talked about one of the most important celestial objects for us on Earth, which is the sun. It gives us so much. It gives us everything we need to live. It gives us a big part of what we need to live. And so I had folks bring in objects that were grounding to them, and we went outside and using those objects and also objects that we found in nature created cyanotypes or sun prints. And then after we finished making those, we came inside and wrote a poem for ourselves to help us feel grounded, or a poem for our object that helps us feel grounded or safe. And it was really fun, and it really allowed students to engage all these different parts of their brains, and it was both hands-on and also learning new information. And I think that's a really great example of some of the workshops that we do at Octavia Project. They're really interdisciplinary and bring in creative, generative activities as well as learning information, doing science, doing art, doing writing.
Wow. I want to take one of your classes. Wow, that sounds so much fun.
Yeah, I feel like we always say, we're designing the programs that we really wish that we had when we were young.
Yeah. Ananya, do you have anything that you might want to read? I know you talked about some poetry. Is there anything you might want to read for us on air, or am I putting you on the spot?
I think I would have to prepare in order to do something
Okay, I'm
like that.
sorry.
Maybe next time.
Okay. So Meghan, tell us a little bit about, the programmatic stuff and how you bring this vision to reality.
Sure, yeah. So as Ananya mentioned, we run summer programs. So we are now going into our 9th year, which is wild. If you had asked me 9 years ago if I thought I'd still be doing this now, I probably would not have said yes. But here we are. Going strong. So this will be our 9th summer, and we offer 2 summer programs. So one is our Summer Institute, which is for high school aged young women and trans and non-binary youth. And then 2 years ago, we launched our summer camp, which is for also a free summer program for middle school aged young women and trans and non-binary youth. So both of the programs, as Ananya said, both programs are very interdisciplinary. We teach computer programming through storytelling. We teach natural sciences through visual art. Both programs do projects in science, tech, art, and writing, very project-based, very hands-on. Both programs also have an element of career exploration. So like Ananya was saying, she was a guest speaker the prior summer, but we bring in guest professionals in STEM fields, in art fields, in writing, in tech. We have software engineers, we have graphic designers, we have biologists, we have architects, we have urban planners. We bring in women professionals from across all fields, and they come in and lead hands-on workshops with our students. So our students are getting to meet them, getting to hear about their careers, maybe learning about careers they didn't know about. When I was in high school, I didn't know what urban planning was. I knew that maybe I was interested in writing, but I didn't know, like, what does an editor do? What does an agent do, right? What does a publicist do? So we're hoping that we're kind of expanding our young people's horizons in terms of what they think they might want to pursue in the future. So that's also a really important element of the program. But yeah, most of it is kind of hands-on, project-based. We're doing something different every day. We do something different every year, even though, each year we're still in the realm of STEAM. So we're doing science and tech and art and writing, but each year the workshops are different because we have a lot of students who come back to do the program with us. So we're always changing it up every year, always coming up with new things. And we're really excited to do it again this summer.
Wow. Okay, well, we're going to take a brief break, and we'll be back to talk further. We're speaking with Meghan McNamara, co-founder, executive director of the Octavia Project, and Ananya, who is the program manager at the Octavia Project. Fascinating stuff that these ladies are doing. So stay tuned for more. You're listening to Community and Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM. We'll be right back after a brief musical break. Okay, we're back. Media and Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM. We're speaking with Meghan McNamara and Ananya Garg from the Octavia Project. Fascinating curriculum that these folks have put together for young girls. I think is it exclusively for girls? Is that correct, ladies?
It's for young women and also for any youth who identify as trans or non-binary as well.
Darn it. This stuff sounds so fascinating. So tell us a little bit about what your plans are for the summer. I know you have a number of summer camps and programs going on. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Sure, yeah. Do you want to start, Ananya?
Sure. So we have two programs. Our Summer Institute is for high school aged students. So that's students aged 14 to 18. And then our summer camp is for middle school students, so grades 6 through 8. And I'm happy to talk more about the program that I run, the Summer Institute for Teens. So every year, in our program, we read a book together, and we use that book kind of as a through line or a thread that connects our summer curriculum. And so this year we're going to be reading This Poison Heart by Kaylin Barron. And it's a really incredible book about a young queer Black girl from Brooklyn who has plant magic, and she is adopted and one day discovers that she's inherited a huge estate upstate New York. So her and her moms move, and there she begins to uncover mysteries and secrets about the community that lives in the small town. And she also finds an apothecary in the home that she inherits, that neighbors and people start coming to her for medicinal plants and salves and tinctures. And so she really gets to use and stretch her magic for the first time, while also uncovering a bit of a mystery. So it's a really good book, and I'm really excited to read it with our youth this summer, because I think it opens up so many different exciting conversations. So I know we're definitely going to be bringing in plants and how we as people are in community with plants in a lot of different ways that we might not realize. And also this aspect of plants as medicine, as like really important healing tools that we have access to. So we're hoping to bring in some folks that are doing work with plant medicine into our summer, and to also think about the ways that we're in community with plants by bringing in some workshops where we'll be using Arduinos and connecting them with plants, that we can get a better idea of the way that they take in information through senses like touch, through the way that they take in air. And Arduinos are little computers that you can program. So we'll be attaching like sensors to the different plants. I'm really excited about all of those different things that are coming up.
Wow, that sounds like fun. Well, what's the name of that book again, Ananya, that you mentioned?
Yeah, it's called This Poison Heart.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
And I could talk a little bit about what we'll be doing at the summer camp,
Okay.
middle school program, because, you know, the programs are, of course, similar, but we're doing different stuff each summer in each of the programs. So in our middle school program, we're going to be reading graphic novels. We're going to have a comic writer and artist come in and do a workshop with students around designing comics. We're going to be doing a circuitry workshop where we're going to be combining information about circuits and how they work with creating some visual art. We're going to be learning computer programming, and they'll be making their own online text-based adventure games. We're going to be doing some sculpture, both with clay and paper mache. We're going to be doing an urban planning workshop led by a guest professional. We're also going to be doing an architecture workshop. We'll be doing some really cool visual art exercises. And of course, we'll be doing a lot of writing. So we'll be working on stories. We'll be working on collaborative world building. We'll be designing our own original characters. And we also take fun science and art field trips around the city. So in the past, that's looked like we've gone to MoMA. We've gone to the Brooklyn Museum. We've gone to Brooklyn Bridge Park. We've gone to the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens. So yeah, also fun field trips around the city where we're kind of seeing cool intersections of art and science and tech around the city as well.
Mm-hmm. So now, if I'm a parent listening to the show, how do I get my daughter or my child hooked up with this program? This is some fascinating stuff. So how do we contact you? How do I get involved if I'm a student or a parent?
Do you want to talk about that, Ananya?
Sure. Well, you are welcome to reach out. We've got a website, octaviaproject.org, and you can find our applications for both of our programs, the summer camp and the summer institute, on our website. You can also follow us on Instagram at Octavia Proj NYC. And there we're always posting updates about our applications and, fun photos from previous summers. And the application is pretty simple. It's not too intense. We mostly ask some demographic information and then a few questions to get to know you a little bit. So I think that even if you are interested in a couple or one or two of the things that we mentioned, that you should absolutely apply, and we'd love to have you be part of our community this summer.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, is it competitive? Are you oversubscribed? I mean, just listening to your curriculum and what you guys are doing, I would think folks would be clamoring to get in.
We do usually end up with a wait list for both programs, unfortunately. Both programs are about one classroom size full of students. So once we get beyond that sort of classroom number for each of the programs, we do have to put folks on a wait list. And we do usually end up with a wait list for both programs, unfortunately. We're hoping to one day expand. Mm-hmm. But if someone doesn't get in this year and they apply again next year, we definitely encourage doing that because we'll give them priority, because they weren't able to do it the year before. And as of right now, we do still have spots open in both of our programs. And we actually have our application deadline is coming up. It's April 30th. So you still have a few days. Like Ananya said, the online application isn't too intensive. We ask for questions about kind of your interest and experience in art and writing and science and tech. We're not looking for a particular expertise or amount of knowledge or experience. We're more looking for an interest, a curiosity, a passion to learn more. So our application deadline is coming up April 30th. We do still have spots open right now. So if you're interested, I encourage you to apply ASAP. We review applications on a rolling basis. And I did want to mention that both programs are 100% free. So there's no cost to apply. There's no cost to participate. And we provide Metro cards to get to and from all the workshops. We provide meals. So at our summer camp, it's breakfast and lunch and snacks. At our high school program, it's lunch and snacks. And we provide any and all of the supplies that you need for the program. We supply journals, pens, art supplies, whatever you need, tech supplies, whatever students need. All the costs of field trips and all of that is also included. So 100% free to apply, 100% free to participate. So if you're interested, I do encourage you to apply. Both of the programs are running. Our high school program runs for 5 weeks, July through August. Our summer camp runs for 4 weeks for the month of July. Both programs are based in Brooklyn. Our high school program is hosted by Pratt Institute, by Pratt's writing department. They've hosted us. We have a relationship with them that's continued for a number of years. So they host us on their beautiful campus in Brooklyn. And our middle school program, our summer camp, is hosted by the Urban Assembly School in downtown Brooklyn. So both of our programs are Brooklyn based, but fairly accessible. We've definitely had folks come from Queens a lot of times, or Manhattan. We've had a student from Staten Island, and we've also had a student from the Bronx. So if you're willing to make the commute, we're willing to be there for you.
Mm-hmm. And it's 5 days a week?
Both programs are 4 days a week. Well, sometimes, mostly 4 days a week.
Okay.
The schedule's a little bit complicated for the summer camp, but mostly 4 days a week, plus some Friday field trips. The high school program is 4 days a week.
Well, octaviaproject.org is the best way to get hooked up. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. Go to octaviaproject.org, and then there's a button at the top that says join. So click that, and then you'll be able to get to information about either the high school program or the middle school program.
So how is Octavia Project funded?
Good question. So we are largely funded by individual donations from our community. Mm-hmm. We started back in 2015. Was it 2015? Yes, I think it was 2015. Sometimes I get my years mixed up. And we ran based on money that we raised from a Kickstarter campaign. We were totally volunteer run. We were raising money in the Kickstarter to pay some teachers, to pay our guest teachers, to pay for snacks, to pay for supplies. But we ran a Kickstarter, and that's how we started. Early on, we were championed by some really amazing figures in the science fiction world, one of them being N.K. Jemisin, who made a promotional video for our very first summer, and we're so grateful for her for doing that, for really taking a chance. We hadn't run yet. We just said, this is an idea we want to do, and she made a promotional video for us. And Jeff Vandermeer, the science fiction author, was also really, really helpful. Actually, Jeff and Anne Vandermeer, who Anne's an editor, a renowned editor in the science fiction world. Both of them really helped champion our campaign early on. And that got the news out to the science fiction community, to the tech community, to the writing community. And since then, we've been funded very significantly through individual donations from our community. Mm-hmm. And for the first several years, we were volunteer run. We weren't an official organization. We were just kind of a loose community structure. And then a few years ago, we transitioned to getting our 501c3, which means that we're now an organization with nonprofit status. So we've been able to start applying for grants. So we now also, maybe about roughly half of our budget is from grants, from foundations, and about half of our budget is individual donations. We've had people who have been supporting us since the very beginning, which is very cool. Very cool to see. So yeah, a little bit of both, but we're really kind of grassroots community funded.
So what are the long-term plans for the Octavia Project? Where do you hope to be, say, in 5 years or 10 years from now? What do you think? What's your vision?
10 years from now, Stu, you're
I know that's almost impossible. Come on, to see that far ahead, but you guys are visionaries, so come on.
No, you're right.
I know you can think that far ahead. You're younger than some of us old folks here. What are you thinking? 10 years, where are you going to be?
We just like we want to envision the alternate futures, we definitely have to envision a future for the Octavia Project too. Yeah. So our next big step that we're hoping to branch into is to offer after school programming. It's probably the number one request that we get from parents and students. They do the summer program, they love it, it's amazing, and they say, okay, great. Like, when do you start up for after school programming? And right now, we don't have the funding or the staff to run additional programming. So we have to say, it's always so sad, but we have to say, sometimes we run like one-off workshops during the school year here or there. We've run like a fellowship program, but for the most part, it's just, we'll see you next summer. So that's been something we've been getting requests about for a long time now. So that is really my goal for our next step. We have schools that we partner with. There are a bunch of amazing community-based organizations out there who would love to host some after-school programming. So I think the potential is really there. I think the interest from our community is really there. So it's really about getting the funding to get the staff and resources that we need to run that kind of programming. You're talking to the entirety of the Octavia Project staff right here.
Okay.
It's just me and Ananya all year long. And we're both not even full time. So, we're doing this on a shoestring budget with a pretty small staff. We do, of course, each summer hire a number of really incredible teachers. The teachers that we've worked with have just been some of the most incredible educators and artists and writers and
Can you name a few, Meghan, who's been involved?
Oh, sure. So our lead teachers have been Arushi Agni, who's a performer, musician, comedian, and writer, but also has a science background. Natina Bean, who is a playwright, has taught with us for many years. Last year, scientist and science teacher Dree Tattersfield taught with us. Maria Monica Andres has taught with us, who's an amazing educator. We've had so many, lots of people. Ray Ferreira, who's now in art education at the Brooklyn Museum, taught with us for a number of years. Ray was also on staff. And way back at the very beginning, co-founder, author, and playwright Hannah Porter also was one of our teachers. And we've also had really incredible guest teachers come in. I mentioned N.K. Jemison. She supported us from the very beginning and also has been coming in each summer and leading workshops with our students. So she'll lead really incredible world building workshops or character development workshops or workshops on being a writer. We had the author of This Poison Heart, this year's book club book, Kaylin Byron. We had her as a guest speaker last year. We've had Eby Zaboy, who's a New York Times bestselling author, come in. We've also had computer programmers, scientists, architects, urban planners. Daphne Lundy, who's an urban planner and really cool kind of urban thinker, designer in New York City, has come in and led workshops with us also since the very beginning, I believe. So we have a lot of just really, really wonderful, talented people coming in and helping us to run this program. So, we don't do it alone. We very much don't do it alone, but kind of the behind the scenes, all of that is really just Ananya and myself.
Wow. This is an amazing, amazing story, the Octavia Project. We're talking with Meghan McNamara and Ananya Garg about their work with the Octavia Project. Incredible stuff that you guys are doing. What haven't we talked about? I know I've been kind of asking about the background and where you guys came from and what you're doing, but I'm sure there's maybe some things you want to mention that I haven't asked you about.
Yeah, I actually wanted to add on when we were talking about the future of Octavia Project. I think Meghan mentioned our fellows. So something that we really want to invest in is the leadership of our young people and fostering their interests. And a lot of the times that means fostering their interest in education too. So we have returning participants often participate as fellows, where they're given additional responsibilities to lead activities, mentor some of the younger participants. And also for the camp, we have returning folks who have done the program in the past actually serve as teachers for the program. And so I think when I think about the future for Octavia Project, I hope that me and Meghan can take a step back and actually give our leadership roles to young people coming in as educators. And we always talk about how Octavia Project might be one of the first places that young people can serve as educators. And so we really want to make it be as supportive as an environment as possible, because being an educator is really hard. Both me and Meghan have worked in education for so long, and I can speak for myself when I say that I haven't always had the easiest time in all of the different education spaces that I have taught in. And so we really hope that we can offer mentorship and support so that one day all of the young people that we're serving can be in the positions that we're in, if that's what they want and if that's their vision for their future.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, Ananya. I knew there was something I wanted to mention and forgot. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Yeah. And that reminds me actually of something else I wanted to share. So in addition to bringing our alumni back as teachers, we're kind of constantly always looking for other ways to support our alumni, as they kind of go into college and are now starting to graduate college, which is kind of wild for me to realize. And one of the things that we added this year, starting this past January, is we partnered with Brooklyn Speculative Fiction Writers, which is a collective of speculative fiction writers based in Brooklyn, who, they're a writing community, so they support each other with writing, editing, publishing, that sort of thing. They run workshops with industry professionals. They workshop each other's pieces. It's a really great community. And we partnered with them to offer mentorship to our alumni to help them work on a story that they're developing. So 5 of our alumni were paired with 5 writers, professional writers from Brooklyn Speculative Fiction Writers, and they meet on a monthly basis. And in between, there's writing homework, and the mentors are sending inspirational pieces or example short stories that they can look at. And the mentees are sending drafts of their writing in Google Docs. The mentors are going through and adding comments, and then they meet monthly to kind of discuss the progress of the piece, where it's going. And then at the end of the mentorship, which will wrap up next month, the students, if they finish a piece, they'll have an opportunity to submit it for publication on Brooklyn Speculative Fiction Writers podcast. They have a podcast called KaleidoCast that they say is a literary magazine in podcast form. So they actually produce sort of like radio dramas of short stories. It's a paid publication opportunity. And so usually it's available to writers within Brooklyn Speculative Fiction Writers community. But any Octavia Project participants who do this mentorship will also have the opportunity to submit their work for this paid publication opportunity that will put one of their pieces on a podcast with, professional voice actors and professional quality production and all of that. So that was another really exciting thing that we started this year. But yeah, sort of always thinking about ways that we can better support our alumni as they go into college. And, some of them are going into STEM fields. I was just talking to an alumni who was thinking about computer science, but now is thinking about switching to biology because they're interested in being a vet. Some of our students are pursuing writing, some are pursuing political science, some are doing journalism. So also, if anyone has any, internships to offer to our students or any kind of supports like that for students in college, please also reach out. We're always looking for more ways to support our alumni.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I am so impressed with the work that you guys are doing. We've been speaking with Meghan McNamara and Ananya Garg about the Octavia Project. Very eclectic kind of approach to education, bringing together art, writing, STEM, science fiction, astronomy. I mean, so many multiple disciplines in a creative, mind-expanding way. I mean, I just want to applaud you both for your vision and for your hard work. It's amazing stuff that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much, Stu.
Okay. Well, we're about to close up. Any final words for our audience? You might want to remind them how to contact you and the upcoming summer activities.
Yeah, so just a reminder that our website is octaviaproject.org. If you're interested in applying to either of our summer programs, again, we run a high school program for young women and trans and non-binary youth, and the middle school program is open to young women, trans and non-binary youth who will be in grades 6 through 8 next year. Our application deadline is coming up I think it's Sunday. It's April 30th. So you still have time to apply. We do still have spots open. Free program, online application, no fee to apply. So please, if you're interested, submit an application.
Okay. Well, thank you both. Again, we've been speaking with Meghan McNamara and Ananya Garg from the Octavia Project. Thank you both so much, and keep up the good work.
Oh, thanks so much, Stu.
Okay, thank you. This has been Community and Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Stay tuned every Wednesday, 5 to 6 p.m. Just might learn something. Thanks. Good night.